So, and it forces you to get something like this out, right? And look at where exactly are they? And sometimes they'll put it up there like a part of it, but then I see it going together. So then you can talk. Maybe we can get the girl to do that. Talk about what was this article about and where was it on the globe, and are there any people out there from there who can share with us what's going on in that part of the world. So yeah, we're going to be working with a young girl. I hope she's coming on board. We talked to her the other day. She knocked our socks off. Let me tell you, she 14 years old, and she wasn't afraid. She called in. She was on it, knew answers to questions, knew how to interview. I thought I was talking with a 30-year-old. She looked like a 14-year-old, but I thought I was. I mean, Ankit, what did you think? She was pretty impressive.
She was wonderful. She's the backstage listening everything.
Oh, is she?
Oh
my God, Artie! Hi.
Hi, Artie.
Thank you for joining. I didn't even know it was you. So, folks, welcome to our new family member to IBM TV, Artie. She's you won't believe she's only 14. Yes, hello, wow. Artie. You know, she answered our call, and we ended up just loving her so much. We thought, wouldn't it be great for her to do a show about teens and to talk about these things, Lynn, that you're talking about, but in teen language, right, Artie?
Mm-hmm. Where are you located, Artie?
I live in St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis, Missouri? Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. That's a great area. I actually never traveled there, but I have friends that are from St. Louis, so I know a little bit about that area. I have some friends all over the world and all over the nation, but St. Louis is definitely where some of my good friends are from. So I know that it's a very rich sports town and a very rich cultural town. I'm a big cultural person, so I know y'all got some great music and great art and stuff like that there, as well as some amazing teams.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to welcome Dr. David Moskowitz as well. I mean, he was busy since a couple of weeks, and now finally he's on IBM TV.
Hi.
Sir, thank you for joining us today.
How are you doing today, Dr. David?
I'm doing great. I used to live for 30 years in St. Louis.
Really?
Wow.
It's a small world, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Dr. David is one of our medical doctors that comes onto IBM TV to bring us updates about research and all these amazing, wonderful things. We have several doctors who come and join us every day. He has been with us since almost the beginning of our show this year. He has a wonderful education. This is what it takes to become a doctor, and this is what we try to inspire as well as, you know, what does it take to be like Dr. David, to get to do all the research and wonderful things he does for humans. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to Harvard, right?
Yep, and it's not just humans, it's animals.
Animals too, that's right.
It turns out preventing dialysis in humans also works for cats and dogs. And probably other animals.
Wow.
So, Artie, do you know what dialysis is?
No.
Okay,
well, that's good. That's good.
That's a good thing.
That's a good problem to have, actually.
To not know about dialysis is a good thing, because there are a lot of people in St. Louis on it, and I'm glad that that your family has nothing to do with it.
Well, it's so what Dr. David Moskowitz, what his mission is to help so that people who have diabetes don't end up on dialysis, that they can survive without it. Because dialysis, though it keeps people alive, it can drain your body and make you sick. You know, there's side effects, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing, a blessing, and the benefits outweigh the risk. But Dr. David Moskowitz, you know, like many of us know that it's hard on the body, as good as it is for the body. And so his goal is to help people who have diabetes or who need it, that they won't have to go to that there are other alternatives. Right, Doctor?
Right. But my message for teens, especially in St. Louis, where, you know, St. Louis teens are the ones I love the most, is that there may be an easy way to avoid getting sick from COVID-19. which is quercetin, a food supplement that you can buy from Amazon or GNC.
Just simple medication.
Right.
Dr. David, just out of curiosity, how prevalent is diabetes among teenagers? I have a future possible sister-in-law. It's my brother's girlfriend, and her daughter has diabetes. She's about to graduate high school very soon and everything, but she's had it since a very young age. So I know that she was one of those that was a juvenile diabetic person, but I don't know how prevalent it is among teenagers. So just wondering if you could speak as to how prevalent that field is, because like I said, she's I want to say around 16, 17, something like that, but she's been dealing with it as long as I've known her, and they've been dating for about 4 or 5 years.
Right. So that's about the right age. Around 10, 11, 12, around puberty, to get type 1 diabetes. And it's a real hardship. Artie, do you know anybody? Are any of your friends type 1 diabetics?
I personally don't know anyone.
Good.
It's a real pain though, because you have to, and it comes at a time of life when the last thing you want to do is inject yourself and measure your sugar, and they're very tight, very what's the word we used to use? Brittle diabetics, because they have absolutely no insulin left, unlike type 2 diabetics, which I happen to be. About a quarter of diabetics are type 1s. So there are 20 million diabetics in the US, 5 million type 1s, juvenile onset.
Yeah, because it's been amazing just watching her and everything. Because like you said, she has to take those tests on a regular daily basis and everything to test her blood sugar and things of that nature. So she has to do that. She's actually a very incredibly smart young lady and everything. So definitely she does very well in school. But it's a hardship that she has to deal with every day. And her mom also has some illnesses that she has to deal with. So it's actually 2 members in the family. And like I said, my brother's been dating her. She actually lost her husband. She had been married in the past, and he actually died of I think it was a heart attack. So everything. So it's just amazing just seeing them still live a very positive life, because they're some of the most positive people that I've ever met and everything. But they go through a lot in their life between the 2 of them.
Wow.
Well, I want to point out something here. It's been, we Americans haven't been here very long, really. And I've known people who were diagnosed with diabetes in my earlier years in life, and they really weren't given a very long time to live, right? So you got to live each day a moment in what you have. And so majority of them, they did. They worked very hard, learned how to test, learned how to inject themselves. But it wasn't until recently, or probably the last 20 years, that I have seen a change where people have more options of better opportunities to live longer, healthier lives. Because there are things we can be doing, supplements. We've done a lot of research. Dr. David Moskowitz dedicates a lot of research to this. But there are many things we could be doing to make our lives last better. One of them is building our immunity and eating healthier, which are also the things that help us protect us from viruses like COVID, is building our immunity, eating healthier, now social distancing. But you were mentioning quercetin, which I want you to know that I broke down, and after, I guess, the last time we were on the show together, I went and bought it because I was feeling so run down and tired. And it took about a week, and I started noticing an escalation in my fatigue started to reduce. So because I was feeling so fatigued, I felt like there was a heavy weight on my chest all the time. So whatever it was that was making me sick for 2 months, because I kept having a fever and then it would go away, and kept having a fever and it would go away, and just hard to breathe. And I decided not to go get tested. I thought if it got worse, I'll go in. Let's just see what this is, because if I go in to get tested, I might catch it if I don't have it. So I finally broke down and took the quercetin. The fevers have broke, and I'm doing I feel the energy building, but you also have to get up and move around, right? You got to get out there and move around a little bit to get that blood pumping. And I added nitric oxide to it, which is beetroot, because I heard that it helps open up the arteries and the blood flow better. So, but yeah, I feel better. Thank you.
We're also exploring the possibility of selling quercetin on the dollar store. So there you go.
I'm really happy.
Well, that was your suggestion about 2 or 3 times when you and I were on the show together. So I took the hint finally, and we're looking to see if it can happen. So I do want to tell you, my daughter grew up with 2 young ladies who both were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when they were, well, I think the older one was 4 and the younger one was 2 or something like that. I mean, they were really young. They're both, the one is going to be turning 50 this year. I guess that tells you how old I am, because that's how old my daughter is. And she's my younger. And then the other one is in her late 40s. But one of the things that we noticed as those young ladies were growing up was and I guess this is a problem, David, that young people have.
Here? Am I the only one here?
No, I think, David, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Artie, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can hear you. We just can't see you.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the issue was when they got into their teens, they began to fight the disease. They began to, and I understand this is a problem with a lot of young people. So they're on medications and they say, I'm just going to stop taking the medications. You know, I have a son who has, if you know what it's called, nephrogenic diabetes insipidus.
Sure.
And thank goodness he didn't fight, although he tried to fight a little bit, but not as much as the young ladies did. And I guess that's not an unusual syndrome of people fighting when they get into their teens, the fact that they do have a disease, and I guess they're different than their friends.
Well, this is Artie's question. Do you know any combative teens who reject their disease? How would you feel?
So, David, while we're waiting for Artie's answer and everything, I was just wondering, could you tell maybe our listeners a little bit that are watching and may not know the difference between the types of diabetes? Because I know there are basically 2 types. And I was actually wondering, Artie's a young teenager and, you know, is probably getting near that age where she might get into dating and stuff like that. But how would you advise somebody to tell about their diabetes? She doesn't have it, but who knows? Maybe she'll date a gentleman that has diabetes at some point. I remember when I was a youngster in my 30s, I believe. Yeah, because I'm in my 50s now. I was dating a young lady, and she actually showed me how to do the whole testing thing. It was probably one of the most poignant moments that I ever had in my dating life. And as Kim knows and Lynn knows, I'm the perpetual bachelor here, so I'm always never found a wife or anything. So perpetual bachelor. But that in my dating life was one of the most poignant moments when a young New Yorker that I was dating and I came down to North Carolina, and she was like, "Mark, you need to know what this is. If this seizure happens, how to deal with it." And to this day, I consider that one of the most poignant moments that I've ever had.
Right. When people take you inside their diseases, it doesn't get more personal than that. Well, you know, type 1 diabetes is a big subject for Children's Hospital at WashU that Artie must know. And the group there is phenomenal. I mean, they do fantastic research. It's an autoimmune disease. And there was a pathologist there for a long time who wanted to transplant pancreatic islet cells. The illness go away. Kim, glad you came unfrozen there. It's like Star Wars, you know, like
I know. I don't want to beam. in and out and get frozen. That would scare me. Halfway in, halfway out. I'm listening. But yeah, the disease, diabetes, has taken a few of my family members.
Wow.
This is why I appreciate everything that Dr. David Moskowitz is doing, because it takes a lot to dedicate your research into something like this. It costs a lot of money, and a lot of people don't realize that. But Artie, I think David asked you a question. Did you get a chance to answer it?
It got frozen, so I couldn't hear. What was the question?
The question was, what would you feel like if you suddenly got told, because it's not, I don't think it's a gradual thing. I don't think people get type 1 diabetes gradually. I think they present with DKA, with diabetic ketoacidosis, really sick, and they don't really have a lead-in time. Like I remember getting my type 2, and there were weeks when, for me, the symptom was I couldn't see clearly anymore because the sugar was high, and the lenses in my eyes were getting blurry, and I just thought I needed new glasses. And to test, because I didn't have health insurance at the time, didn't want to see anybody that would incur a cost. I had my wife. My wife gave me Dunkin' Donuts, and I ate 5 donuts to see if I would get worse, which I did, sort of. But type 2 diabetic, it was stupid. It's better to see your doctor. But type 2 diabetics don't go into coma. When I was a resident, we were taught that high sugars were, terrifying, and to treat them at all time. And the truth is that lots of type 2 diabetics do fine for months, years on high sugars of 300-400, and they run out of their insulin. It's not the end of the world. Whereas type 1 diabetics are very brittle and go into diabetic ketoacidosis and coma at the drop of a hat. I don't know why it's it's so much more life or death for the young people. But the question, Artie, was if you had type 1 diabetes and you couldn't be off your insulin, for more than a few minutes or hours, how you would react? Would you dutifully check your sugar and inject your insulin like your doctor told you, or would you rebel and just pretend that you didn't have it anymore?
I would listen to the doctor and inject the insulin, even though it's like a lot to take in, especially at a young age. I would definitely listen to the doctor.
Always good advice to listen to the doctor. Oh, by the way, I was going to show y'all, because she sent me her graduation invitation. This is the young lady who has the diabetes and everything. So that's Miss Evelyn. So if I can make the picture clear, but that's Miss Evelyn, who's graduating in this year from class.
Very nice. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Just living with type 1 diabetes is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
But I think there's an autoimmune component, and people have shown various viruses involved. There's supposed to be cross-reactivity between the virus, like, and there are a number of them, 3 or 4 that have been that have been found in the pancreatic islets of teens who just get type 1 diabetes, or antibodies against this virus, like Coxsackie virus. But it seems like various viruses can do it, and then there's a cross-reactivity against antigens in the beta cells of the pancreatic islets. And so my approach to COVID-19 and to immune excess diseases of immune excess, let's call them DIEs, DIEs, is to inhibit the innate immune response. It turns out, and it's interesting, I mean, quercetin may be useful for type 1 diabetes. I tried kind of an anti-macrophage drug, losartan, for type 1 diabetes. And so this was a friend of mine whose daughter, maybe 10 years ago, got type 1 diabetes. He called me up after a month and asked me if I knew anything to do. And just to sort of suppress her overly exuberant immune system, we gave her losartan, which is, I think, mostly an anti-macrophage drug. And this was, 2003 or something. And it bought her an insulin holiday for a month. So for a month, she didn't have to use any insulin.
Wow.
And I wonder if quercetin may actually do that even better.
Wow. Wow. That's.
And Dr. David, what I've seen with the patients closely, patients who are undergoing dialysis and also patients with bariatric surgery, they somehow they have a tendency to lose their diabetes. And also, what do you think about blood transfusion for diabetic patients? Would that be helpful?
What was the second thing?
Blood transfusions.
Blood transfusion for diabetic patients?
Well, I don't like blood transfusions, period. They scare me because there's always a chance to introduce some unknown virus or some unknown antigen. People who lose tons of weight in bariatric surgery, or people who lose kidney function on dialysis, frequently won't need as much insulin as before. But it's not that they're getting cured of their diabetes. It's sort of a trick of insulin metabolism. The fat cells require insulin, and the fewer that you have, the less insulin you need. The kidneys get rid of insulin, metabolize insulin. So if you don't have any, then the little bit of insulin that you take or the pills that you use are much more effective than they used to be. I have diabetes. I was always scared of it. It's not. I used to think the minute you got it, you died, but you can actually peter on, for longer than that.
Well, and like I said, but many, many years ago when I was younger, it felt like a death sentence to some people. They would even tell them, you're probably, especially people who were diagnosed with type 1, your odds are you're not going to live past 30. There's just, 30 to 40. And there are a lot of diseases like that, right? But somehow medical industry changes all of that because we make effort to find solutions. And that's what we do. And that's what we did.
Well, I mean, take dialysis, for example. So 25 years, dialysis is not good news. And you're dead within 3 to 5 years once you go on the kidney machine. And so it's definitely something to be avoided because there aren't enough.
Somebody freeze? Did we all freeze? Oh, there.
So yeah, when you say that, but nowadays I think that there's just so much advances, and like you were saying, there are supplements we can try. I can remember my father being a diabetic, and he had many, many parts of the disease that was really sad, and but he would try all the alternatives, right? And he would always come back and go, I feel better. Like he tried grapeseed extract, right? As a supplement, and it helps cleanse your body and balance it. And I could see a difference even in his skin, right? I could see a difference because the skin, you lose a lot of your, I don't know if it's the elective, what is it that you lose in the skin that diabetes seems to make it so much thinner or something, but and he lost the feelings in his hands. What do you call that?
Something, Dr. David?
Sorry, Ankit?
So when there's a patient suffering from diabetes, they lose some glycogen or something from the skin, and they lose the power.
I'm not a skin guy.
Oh, you're not a skin guy. Okay, just the diabetes. So, but just, they tend to get neuropathy. They tend to lose the feelings in their hands and in their fingers.
Numbness is there. Some numbness is there, and I think it's more about I'm not sure, but the fluid or something oil which they loses, and they are unable to grab something. So they lose this.
Right. Well, the neuropathy, it's a puzzle to me. I think it's a puzzle to everybody still. But it's amazing to consider this, the long nerve that goes from your spinal column all the way to the tip of your toe. That's one single cell, which is extraordinary to me, since most cells, as Artie knows, are microscopic, invisible. And here's one that's 3 feet long.
Right. Isn't that amazing? And how often do we actually try to focus on that itself, that it actually is the whole body? I learned so much about each nerve ending in my body because I go for treatments at Duke every month. And we go into those nerves, each one of them, and we shoot it with lidocaine, basically, to shorten it out so that I can function, so that I can breathe, so that I can move my arms and hands. And it's usually about 20 to 28 shots. But I get to feel like, I feel like whenever they hit a certain nerve, sometimes I feel it touch my nose. They'll hit another one. Sometimes I feel it touch my toes. So yeah, you're right that our spine is such a spider web of where it goes. And it's fascinating to me because every month is different. It's a different experience. But how can we start making changes? Like we got this beautiful 14-year-old here, Artie, and we're going to be reaching out to the teen world. What are some things that we could do to help prevent the type 2 diabetes? Because I don't know that we can prevent type 1, right? There's no symptoms, boom, you're hit with it. But how do we prevent type 2?
I think type 1 might actually be more relevant to them, since that's the age group that gets it.
Right.
Artie, are you terribly scared of type 1? Is that like an item in school?
We actually never learned about it in school, so not many.
You don't have any friends with it?
So not many teens are actually aware of it, I feel like, unless they're diagnosed with it.
Right. And then they keep it to themselves.
Sort of health course that you have in your school in St. Louis? Is there any sort of health course? Because I know when I was growing up, of course, that was some, several decades ago and everything, but we had like some health courses. But are y'all have any required health courses in St. Louis?
Oh, we have a required health course, but I haven't taken it yet, so I'm not sure if they go over diabetes yet. So,
Artie, where are you going?
I go to Marquette High School.
The Marquette High School. Where's that?
Actually, we live in the suburbs in a city called Baldwin.
So. Oh, Baldwin's to the south, right? Or Chesterfield, Baldwin.
Yeah, actually, Marquette is in Chesterfield, so it's pretty close.
Oh, Marquette. I was thinking the market, like some kind of madness. The Marquette Mustangs, right? Aren't you Mustangs?
Yeah.
Yeah, my son went to Ladue High School and was on the water polo team. And he would go out and get beaten by Marquette all the time.
Every time I hear Marquette, I think of my college because I went to college at Marquette University. But that's how there's Marquette, Michigan. There's Marquette in Missouri, where you're at, and then there's Marquette in Milwaukee, which is where the university is.
Right.
Diabetes can just take away from a person's life if they let it. But today we've got so many great, wonderful things to educate people. But I'm surprised that they don't talk about it in the schools. You would think that this would be something, especially, the fact that type 2, well, you said type 1 is more concerning, but type 2, I think, can be controlled a little bit. I could be wrong, but.
Well, I don't think neither I think can be really prevented that well. The CDC for public health in general for probably the past 20 or 30 years has been blaming type 2 on obesity and sort of shaming people into losing weight and blaming them for getting diabetes themselves just for being obese. I'm obese, and I'm sure that contributed. But already by the age of 32, when I was a resident, and those little guillotine needles came out to puncture your finger and draw blood, and because when I was, this was early 80s, the blood checking your blood for sugar was just coming out. So pricking your finger and bleeding onto a little strip, and then putting it in the machine was just becoming available for self-monitoring. Before that, people would look at their urine, which is a very imprecise way of seeing what your sugar is. So they were excited that you could tell instantly what your blood sugar was. My blood sugar was off the wall just after a donut. And the attending told me I should watch out. It was a surprise. And there you go, one touch.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I may be wrong, and that's a lot of what we do for diabetes is measuring sugar. In the same way that a lot of what we do for orthopedics is getting MRIs. What people don't realize is that the tests have absolutely no therapeutic value whatsoever. It's cute, yeah, but I don't use it. I mean, I've been told to use it. What I go by is A1Cs. Type 1 diabetics can't do that because their sugar varies so much, and they're so sensitive to it. They actually do have to use that machine. Type 2s don't have to. They can just go by A1Cs every 3 months and kind of adjust their insulin accordingly. But it seems to me the worst thing about diabetes is the consequences. And if you could block the consequences, that blindness, kidney failure, amputations, neuropathy, then you don't really have to worry about keeping your sugar level so tight.
And how do we do that? What are some good ways that we can help prevent those things? Because my father lost part of his foot. You know, I've seen amputations. I've seen, you know, I watched it. Type 1, I watched my sister-in-law. She lived with it her whole, you know, very long time, way past what they predicted. But she lived a good farm life. I'm just going to tell you, she ate from the farm. And, you know, very seldom did you see the family, the way she grew up, take anything other than that. And then she tested every day, you know, sometimes several times a day. And she didn't find out she had type 1 until after she had her first child. That's what was, and because her first child died, and that's how they were able to diagnose that she had type 1 diabetes. So odd that she was that old or that age to find out, but then how she lived so long, right? And I just truly believed it was her lifestyle, and she really stayed on top of it. But I've seen other people struggle with type 2 and struggle harder. Like harder.
But the concern is about people know that they have diabetes 1, type 2, type 3, but they are not focusing on the right food. If they eat right food and right fruits and right vegetables, I think they can balance it out and maintain it. But I think that is what everyone knows it, but still they have Coca-Colas and still they have those burgers and pizzas and things like that. And I'll tell you, on IBM TV, we are starting a health cafe, and we are giving every fruit a brand ambassador. So Kim is a brand ambassador of watermelon, and I'm a brand ambassador of mango. And you have to choose your own fruit. Because we have brand ambassadors of McDonald's and pizzas and Coca-Colas and things like that. But we talk about fruit, there is no brand ambassador.
or vegetables, right? Nobody's out there promoting and making it look attractive and sexy and fun to eat fruit. They don't do that. They make it look fun and exciting to drink a Coke and fun and exciting to eat a cheeseburger, but nobody makes it look attractive to eat a mango or to eat a watermelon. They don't make it look exciting, and that we should be making those items look exciting and fun to eat so that our bodies are healthier and our immunity is stronger, right?
And also, Kim, why can't we have?
We're doing on IBM TV. We're going to be making.
And Kim, why can't we have a all fruit party where we'll serve fruits and smoothies? That's it, nothing else.
An all fruit party.
Yeah.
Sound pretty good to you?
How close is Dr. David? I was just wondering, how close is diabetes related to other ailments? Because I know I had a good friend of mine who's still around, still doing a lot of good things in the community, but he's always been diabetic, but he had a stroke not that long ago. So I'm thinking the two are somewhat maybe related, the stroke and the diabetes.
Yeah, basically. So, 2/3 of people die from atherosclerosis, from some sort of cardiovascular disease, and 1/3 of people die from cancer. It seems to be two separate worlds. Diabetes doesn't, cancer, although there's a lot of overlap, people with heart attacks also get cancer. There doesn't seem to be a direct link. In other words, cardiovascular disease doesn't presuppose you to cancer. You don't seem at any increased risk for cancer if you have cardiovascular disease. Diabetes is cardiovascular disease on steroids, probably literally. So hypertension gives you the heart disease and the strokes, and diabetes accelerates that by decades. So, if you have your heart attack at 80, normally diabetes will give it to you at 50. And I think the reason is what they found is that hypertension is already a condition of insulin resistance. So the only difference between hypertension and diabetes is that in hypertension, people still have their pancreases left, and diabetics run out of insulin, but they both have insulin resistance to start with. And I think the reason why diabetics have accelerated atherosclerosis is because the sugar actually undergoes a redox reaction, and its partner is ACE. So sugar gets oxidized. It's an aldehyde, gets oxidized to a carboxylic acid, and it needs a partner to get reduced. The reduction partner is ACE, this enzyme. There's a sulfur-sulfur bond in the middle of the enzyme that gets reduced to a SHSH, two separate cysteines. And when that happens, a sidewall of the enzyme opens up and the enzyme becomes active, and you make more angiotensin 2 when ACE, the enzyme, is active. And the angiotensin 2 is the bad guy. It's the thing that causes constriction of the arteries and ischemia and thrombosis and strokes and heart attacks. And so I think the reason why diabetes accelerates normal hypertension and angiotensin 2 causes insulin resistance. So I think that's the key relationship. And the sugar level per se isn't as important. As long as you can block activation of ACE, the enzyme, then you won't get the complications. Although the truth is that amputations don't seem to be part of that. I mean, I can block blindness and kidney failure, so-called microangiopathy, but I can't really block macroangiopathy, the amputations that Kim was talking about. And presumably strokes and heart attacks are sort of intermediate-sized vessels they should be blockable as well. That's why I'm not worried about my diabetes. What worry?
More worried about the other stuff that comes with the diabetes. The scary part too is like I'm hypoglycemic. So my dad was diabetic, but I'm hypoglycemic. So I have to eat constantly or stay on top, not constantly. I have to eat the right foods, right? And I've learned some foods will spin me out faster, right? If I don't eat right in the morning, I'm going to be passing out in an hour or two. So I have to find balances in my diet. It's not like they've got an insulin or something that they can give you as hypoglycemic. So a little bit different story. But diabetes comes with a lot of other diseases that a lot of people don't realize, right? People just don't realize the heart disease that comes with it. The Ankit, you struggle with it with your dad, right?
Yeah. That's what I was. So he's suffering from diabetes. I believe more than 10 years or so, and hypertension is also around 15 years. But what I've seen is that initially the diabetes was okay, but after a point of time it goes little higher, and then the diabetes spread out in the whole body. So now he has a problem in his eyes and numbness in his legs. Although we have checked with the neuropathic and all those people and doctors, the strength in the legs are perfectly fine, but due to diabetes, he's not able to walk as good as he would be earlier. But I would like to know, Dr. David, that I've seen, because in my family there are a lot of people suffering from diabetes. When they go for their blood reports, the albumin level is always a little higher as compared to the normal person. That means they are releasing a lot of protein. Is that related to something with diabetes?
Yeah.
Well, so their albumin level is higher. It probably is a concentration effect. More than that they're producing albumin, because it's a grams per deciliter kind of thing. And if there's less water, then their concentration of albumin will look higher. Diabetics are generally volume depleted. And the reason is because the high sugar acts like an osmotic diuretic. The kidney can't retain sugar over a blood level of 200, and so the sugar goes out in the urine and it drags water with it. It causes a kind of diabetes insipidus. It's actually called diabetes mellitus because doctors tasted the urine and it was sweet, but diabetes means urine flow. And I guess Lynn isn't here anymore with his son with the diabetes insipidus, but it's the same idea of too much urine. And so that's why I drink water all the time. My mouth's always dry because I'm always peeing out more water than I should and need to replenish. And that's why I think your family members need to drink more water, and also they need to talk to me because they should be on more ACE inhibitor than they're taking.
Happy birthday, Ankit.
Sorry about that.
Happy birthday, Ankit.
Oh, yeah.